the lavish heart of Emir al-Zara's palace, the billionaire Sheikh stood alone, his piercing eyes scanning the grand hall with an iron will that brooked no defiance. His empire was built on power, precision, and control. Yet beneath his cold exterior brewed a torment few dared glimpse. Tonight a whisper had reached him. A poor maid's grades, astonishing beyond belief, threatened to crack the perfect order of his domain. The palace breathed wealth in every corner, the scent of rare oud drifting softly through vast corridors lined with golden pillars, silks gliding underfoot like liquid fire, and jewels glittering in chandeliers like frozen stars. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, its silence wrapping the emir like a sacred secret, as the moon carved shadows on ancient sands. Amira moved quietly, her hands steady despite the weight of exhaustion etched on her slender frame. She was the lowest among servants, yet bore a brilliance that none knew. Beneath her simple veil, eyes burned with fierce determination. Each sacrifice made to reach a dream far beyond the gilded cages of this opulent prison. Her exceptional grades were a marvel to all who saw them, but none had questioned how a maid could wield such genius in a world that dismissed her existence. The Sheikh had watched her from the balcony, his gaze catching the subtle curve of her jaw set against fate's cruel hand. There was a stubborn fire in her, an intelligence that defied his expectations and pricked his pride. He was a man used to commanding obedience, not questioning the value of those beneath his throne. But Amira's secret threatened to unravel all his long-held beliefs. Fate drew them together in a brief, charged encounter. In the shadowed hallway, their eyes locked, a silent battle waging beneath layers of unspoken words. His stare was sharp, testing, hers guarded yet resolute. The gulf of status yawned between them, but the electricity in that glance whispered of a connection far deeper. "Your grades, they don't make sense," he murmured, voice low and veined with both curiosity and disbelief. Amira's breath hitched. "There's more to me than what you see." The Sheikh's pride won't allow the appeal of her intellect to soften the walls he had built. Yet, as he turned away, a reluctant respect kindled within, a spark he dared not admit. But just as intrigue began to take root, a secret arrived, cloaked in shadows. The Sheikh's fingers found an anonymous envelope slipped beneath his chamber door. Inside, a note that sent cold tendrils twisting through his heart. It spoke of betrayal, a shadow lurking close among those he trusted, a secret tied unnervingly to the maid he sought to know. The empire he ruled so rigidly threatened to crumble, entangled now in a web of genius and deceit. Before the next secret of Emir al-Zara unfolds, make sure you're already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be written, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already captured you. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga, and what twist do you think is coming next? Your passion for these dramas is what inspires us to keep going. Thank you for being with us. The silk curtains fluttered lightly in the warm breeze that slipped through the palace windows, carrying with it the faint fragrance of blooming jasmine and distant spices. Inside the grand hall of Emir al-Zahra's palace, silence lingered thickly, as if the very air feared to disturb the brewing storm. The Torah of power had never been so fragile. The billionaire sheikh paced slowly, each step calculated yet hollow. His gaze remained fixed on the sealed envelope in his clenched hand, the cold weight of its paper, stark against the warmth of his palm. He had felt the tremor, an undercurrent of betrayal threading through his world, one he could no longer ignore, and it all whispered of the maid, Amira. She had been invisible until now, a shadow weaving quietly through the palace's opulence, her brilliance unnoticed, or perhaps willfully ignored. But this letter threatened everything: the carefully constructed order of his rule, his ironclad pride, and the fortress around his heart. The words in the letter were sparse but piercing. Not all light shines from the throne. Beware the one who serves but conceals. His jaw tightened. What did she hide? And why? The questions clawed relentlessly, unraveling the certainty he had commanded with ruthless precision. Amira, unaware of the silent war brewing above, wound her way through the labyrinthine corridors beneath the palace. Her veil, a thin barrier between her hidden truths and the sprawling world above, fluttered with each measured step. Her exhaustion was a quiet companion. Years of sacrifice had carved deep lines under her eyes, yet her resolve none had yet fully grasped. She paused for a breath, the faint echo of footsteps behind her briefly stirring her senses. The servants' quarters were a world apart from the glittering chandeliers and golden pillars. A realm where whispers traveled fast and secrets were currency. Her mind raced with the implications of the unexpected encounter with the sheikh, the weight of his gaze still heavy on her skin, like the desert sun burning at noon. That man, he's not like the others, she whispered to herself, voice barely audible against the muted sounds of the palace. There's a fire in him too, maybe something more. Her fingers brushed against the worn pages of a book hidden beneath her shawl, a silent rebellion against the fate that had tried to cage her. The intellectual hunger she'd carried since childhood was her true inheritance, one far more precious than jewels or titles. Far above, the sheikh's thoughts stormed unchecked. His world revolved around control, yet this Maid's secret threatened to unravel everything. His instincts warred with the unfamiliar stirrings within. His chest, a fragile thread of curiosity, tangled with a reluctant respect for her courage and intellect. Yet, suspicion was a sharper blade, and trust a luxury his heart could not yet afford. His empire was too vast, his enemies too close. A sudden knock at his door shattered the fragile quiet. "Enter," he commanded without turning. A shadow stepped forth. Khalid, his loyal advisor, but a man whose loyalties had always hovered in the gray. His eyes flickered briefly toward the envelope in the sheikh's hand. "The letter you received. It carries more weight than you realize," Khalid said, voice low, eyes narrowing. "There are those who would use knowledge as a weapon, and not all weapons are forged in enemy lands." The sheikh's gaze hardened. Then find out who dares to weave such poison in my house. Reveal the nameless traitor. Khalid inclined his head, but his face remained unreadable. As he left, the Sheikh's fingers curled tightly around the envelope once again. Deep in his mind, a chilling thought took root. The intersection of brilliance and betrayal was no accident. That night, beneath the vast dome painted with celestial gold, the Sheikh's solitude was broken by a knock. The door opened to reveal Amira herself, her eyes defiant yet vulnerable. "You summoned me?" Her voice was steady, but the tension radiated like waves from a quiet storm. He studied her, this fragile woman of shadows, who dared now to cross the threshold into his world. "I need answers," he said bluntly, voice edged with the authority of a man used to command. "Why does your intellect unsettle my kingdom?" Amira swallowed, the truth simmering at the edges of her lips. She could lie, protect the fragile secret that might shatter her existence. But something in the Sheikh's gaze compelled honesty. "Because what the world sees is not all I am," she confessed softly. "There are depths to me the palace walls cannot contain." The words draped between them, heavy and charged with meaning. The Sheikh's heart tightened in a knot of contradiction. He was drawn irresistibly toward her light and the shadow it cast. The possibility that this maid was both a treasure and a threat. Before he could speak, the palace doors shivered as distant voices echoed, a herald's announcement that fractured the moment like glass. A summons for the Sheikh, an urgent call from his council, hinting at unrest beyond these gilded walls. But it was the note found earlier that haunted him still, a puzzle piece refusing to fall into place. The betrayal was close, tangled with Amira's secret, and the closer he looked, the more the lines blurred. As Amira turned to leave, her steps faltered. The Sheikh's voice, roughened by unease, pulled her back. "Wait," he said. "If you carry secrets, then trust must bend tonight. Tell me, am I destined to be ruler of ashes, or a kingdom reborn through truth?" Her eyes met his, fierce, unwavering. "The truth is a double-edged sword, Your Highness. It can save or destroy." A fragile truce settled, charged with unspoken promises and warns of trials to come. The moon hung high, casting silver threads over the desert's endless silence. But beneath the grandeur, beneath the empire's glitter, a deeper storm was gathering, a secret so profound it threatened not just the palace, but the very heart of the billionaire Sheikh. And in the shadowed depths, a figure watched, unknown, waiting to strike when trust faltered and the empire lay vulnerable. The truth was no longer a secret between two souls. It was a looming reckoning, poised to shatter the fragile peace. And in that moment, as the palace held its breath, the Sheikh understood. The battle for his heart and his throne had only just begun. The flickering lanterns cast uneven shadows along the marble floors, the golden walls reflecting fragments of light like shattered dreams trapped within the palace's gilded cage. Emir al-Zahra's chambers felt cavernous and empty. Despite the ocean of opulence, that surrounded the billionaire Sheikh, a man whose very presence commanded kingdoms, yet revealed fragility only in moments of solitude. His fingers crushed the envelope, as if the fragile paper could hold together the ruins of his certainty. The chilling words echoed relentlessly in his mind, an accusation. So silent yet so sharp. Beware the one who serves but conceals. He stood motionless, the storm behind his dark eyes barely contained. The empire he forged was no stranger to enemies, but this shadow, close to home, unnerved him more than any desert rival. The idea that his mind, so used to control and calculation, could be outmaneuvered by a mere servant, ignited a chasm of doubt. A sudden movement drew his attention, the soft rustling of silk and the faint scent of jasmine slipping beneath the door, delicate yet defiant. Amira stepped forward, her veil barely shielding the fierce intelligence burning in her gaze. She held herself steady, the exhaustion etched on her face, masked by a determination that no hardship had fractured. The Sheikh's breath steadied. She was no longer just a mysterious puzzle. She had crossed a line, forced into the illuminated halls of his guarded heart. "Why did you come?" His voice was low, a blend of command and curiosity, wary of betraying the undercurrent of vulnerability he disliked in himself. "I do not fear your judgment," Amira replied, folding and unfolding the edge of her shawl. "There is no more hiding, not from you." Her words hung like a challenge, raw and unsettling, a tremor beneath the polished surfaces of power. He studied the curve of her jaw, the tension in her hands, a silent plea concealed beneath the mask of resolve. "The letter you feared? What truth does it hold?" Her eyes softened, shadows flickering behind her lashes. "Truth is a dangerous thing in this palace. To reveal it is to risk everything." The room fell into a tense silence, the golden chandeliers casting fractured light that seemed to fracture their fragile truce. He stepped closer, the heat between them drawn from different worlds, one born of desert sun and command, the other forged in hardship and dreams that reached beyond the stars. "Your brilliance unsettles me," he confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "Not because I fear your mind, but because it kindles a fire I thought dead inside me." Amira's breath hitched, but she held his gaze. "And yet, you remain silent, watching me as if waiting for the storm to pass or engulf us both." The weight of his silence was a tension-turned bridge, a precarious thread, stretching between suspicion and reluctant admiration. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the corridor beyond, sharp and hurried. The Sheikh's eyes flashed to the door as it swung open, revealing Khalid, his most trusted advisor, a man cloaked in loyalty, but shadowed by secrets. "Your Highness," Khalid began, voice edged with urgency. "The unrest beyond the palace walls grows louder. Rumors whisper of dissent among the tribes, fueled by a force unseen, one that strikes at the very heart of your rule." The Sheikh's gaze narrowed, hunger for control clashing with the gnawing uncertainty in his chest. "And this shadow within my house?" he demanded, lifting the envelope. "Have you uncovered the traitor among us?" Khalid hesitated, the flicker in his eyes betraying thoughts left unspoken. "The truth is obscured, Your Highness. But the name linked to this threat will shock you, for it lies closer than you imagine." A cold silence fell, as though the very walls listened breathlessly. Amira's presence complicated the air, a living paradox of light and shadow, entwined with this palace's secrets. As Khalid withdrew, the Sheikh's thoughts twisted into labyrinths of trust and betrayal. He turned to Amira, the quiet storm he could no longer ignore. "Tell me, Amira," he said, voice taut with fragile hope and wary command, "what is hidden beneath your veil? What secrets do you carry that could either break or bind this empire?" Her gaze darted to the floor, then back, steadfast yet edged with pain. "What you seek is not simply mine alone. It belongs to a past I tried to bury, a past that could destroy us both." The confession fell like a blade. In that moment, the billionaire known for his iron will revealed a flicker of something far deeper: fear for the unknown, and a longing for truth that might redeem or ruin them. A distant murmur rose from the courtyard, a call to arms, a summons whispered urgently by the desert wind. Duty tugged hard on the Sheikh, yet his attention remained anchored to the fragile woman before him. "Stay," he commanded, his voice breaking slightly. "Tonight, no walls between us. If our fates are entwined by truth and betrayal, then we face it together." Amira swallowed the knot forming in her throat, the weight of centuries of secrets pressing upon her slender shoulders. She reached slowly, as if risking everything with that single motion, and brushed a stray lock from his forehead, an act both tender and defiant. Outside, the desert moon wrapped the palace in cold light, indifferent to the human storms swirling beneath its gaze. But within, the battle for hearts and power had ignited anew. And deep somewhere, cloaked in shadows thick as night, an unseen figure smiled, a smile that promised the coming darkness would ensnare them all. The secrets buried in Amira's past were stirring, and the next move in this deadly dance would shatter the fragile line between love and ruin. The night deepened, draping the palace in a veil of quiet mystery, as if even the stars held their breath in anticipation. The golden flicker of lanterns cast fractured shadows that danced along the marble, reflecting the turmoil simmering within the vast halls of Emir al-Zahra's domain. The billionaire Sheikh sat alone at the edge of his grand divan, the weight of the sealed letter heavy in his mind. His dark eyes, usually sharp and unyielding, flickered with a vulnerable restlessness. The words whispered in that anonymous note had rattled the core of his perfectly ordered world. A shadow lurking too close, a betrayal entwined with Amira's concealed truth. The door to his chambers opened slowly, and Amira stepped inside, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of the corridor behind her. Her eyes met his without hesitation, fierce, yet tinged with a vulnerability that tangled uneasily with the pride he both admired and despised. "You asked me to stay," she stated, voice steady, but quiet enough to carry the weight of unspoken fears. He nodded, motionless, the air thick between them. "You are no longer merely a servant, hidden in the shadows, Amira. The threads of your secret weave through my empire, threatening to unravel it." Her breath caught, but she met his gaze unwaveringly. "If I am a threat, then it is only because I carry a truth that the palace walls refuse to hear. She moved closer now, the faint aroma of jasmine and desert winds clinging to her like an invisible cloak. The gulf between their worlds remained vast, yet the energy between them crackled with undeniable force, a tension neither could unravel nor resist. "What is this truth?" His voice was low, a rare softness piercing through his iron will. She hesitated, the fragile barrier of kindness cracking in the flicker of moonlight. A past buried beneath layers of silence and pain. A lineage erased, replaced by a life no one dared imagine. Mine. Her words were fragile, but resolute, a confession heavier than any jewel in his endless chamber. He stared, feeling the walls of his certainty tremble. For years, power had been his fortress, every piece of control meticulously maintained. And now, here was Amira, a woman of humble origins, yet bearing a spark fierce enough to burn those walls down. The door creaked, and the quiet was shattered once more. Khalid entered, his expression grave and eyes sharp as ever. "Your Highness, the unrest stirs beyond these walls. The tribes grow restless, whispers of rebellion weaving through the desert like a poisonous wind. And within the palace, shadows lengthen." The Sheikh's jaw clenched. "Have you discovered the traitor?" Khalid's glance flickered to Amira, subtle but refusing to be unnoticed. "The threat we face is more insidious than a mere rival or disloyal servant. It strikes at the very heart of your rule, a truth concealed within your own court." His gaze locked with Khalid's, hunting for answers where none were freely given. "We must move quickly," Khalid warned. "The enemy hides behind familiar faces, their motives masked by loyalty." The seconds stretched, thick with unsaid fears. Amira's hand twitched slightly, the tension in her poised frame a silent echo of the turmoil burning within. The Sheikh broke the silence, his voice nearly a whisper. "Amira, can I trust you with the truth of my empire's fragility? Or is your brilliance a mask that hides a deeper betrayal?" Her eyes hardened, the flicker of pain giving way to fierce determination. "I have no desire to betray you, my Sheikh, but my past is a battleground, and it is not mine alone. What I carry could either be our salvation or our ruin." He rose, the grandeur of his presence casting a commanding shadow across the room. "Then speak. Tell me everything, no matter the cost." She stepped forward, the distance between them now charged with the electricity of revelation. "I was born into a secret long forbidden, a connection to a rival tribe thought extinct. My parents hid me here beneath the palace walls to protect me from those who would use me as a pawn," Amira confessed, her voice trembling not with fear, but with the weight of hidden years. His breath hitched. The empire he ruled so fiercely, now tangled with alliances and enmities he had never imagined. His heart, so accustomed to wielding command, stuttered at the fragile revelation. The room seemed to tilt, the walls closing in with the new gravity of their shared danger. Before he could respond, a sudden shout echoed from the outer halls. Courtiers hurried past the door, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear. "Your Highness," a breathless messenger entered, his voice urgent. "A raid has struck one of your border outposts. The rebellion has begun." The Sheikh's eyes locked on Amira's, the truth between them suddenly sharper, more urgent. "Your secret," he said, his voice a fierce whisper, is the key to more than just this palace's survival. It reaches into the very sands of this land, into the heart of every tribe and throne. Amira nodded, her own resolve hardening. And if I fail to reveal it in time, then we are doomed, not just to lose power, but to lose everything we cherish. The tension in the chamber spiraled into a silent vow, binding two disparate souls into a pact fraught with peril. He took her hand lightly. The gesture unexpected, but not unwelcome. Tomorrow, the fight will not only be for my empire, but for the future we dare to imagine. Her fingers tightened around his, a fierce promise burning between them. Outside, the desert winds howled like an omen, and destiny waited with bated breath. But within the palace, beneath the glittering chandeliers, and beneath the secrets too long kept, the true enemy stirred, closing in with malice, sharpened by betrayal. And as the moon retreated behind thick clouds, a figure cloaked in darkness whispered a name that no one dared speak aloud, a name that would change the fate of the billionaire Sheikh forever. The palace corridors thrummed with a restless energy, the quiet before a storm that none could yet fully grasp. Emir al-Zahra's chambers stood bathed in golden light, the air thick with unspoken truths that threatened to unravel the delicate balance of power. The billionaire Sheikh paced, every measured step echoing the turmoil nested deep within his soul. His fingers unconsciously traced the edges of the sealed letter once more, as if seeking answers in the fragile folds of its paper. The warning it bore was no trivial threat. Beware the one who serves but conceals. Those words had planted a poison seed in his mind, casting suspicion like a shadow over the very heart of his empire. Amira's presence lingered like a faint perfume in the room, the memory of her bold confession still burning against the cold marble and gilded walls. His voice broke the silence, low and unequivocal. "Tell me everything." She met his gaze with unwavering resolve, the flickering candlelight catching the gleam in her eyes. "There are truths beneath the surface of this palace, truths kept buried by fear and silence. My past is bound to the fate of this land in ways you've never imagined." The weight of her words settled between them, thick and heavy. His empire, built on foundations of control and command, now quivered beneath the tremors of a secret he had never anticipated. She stepped forward, the rustle of her silk robes soft against the marble floor, an unexpected grace in the restless tension of the room. "I carry a legacy erased from history," she whispered, voice trembling with the burden of hidden scars. "Born from a tribe thought destroyed, my survival was a secret meant to protect and to hide." The Sheikh's eyes darkened, the fires of suspicion battling with a strange, nascent protectiveness. "And you believe this secret could ignite rebellion within my own walls?" Her silence was the answer. Outside, the sounds of the palace shifted. Voices hurried in distant hallways, the faint clatter of armored guards moving in response to unseen alarms. The fragile fortress of Emir al-Zahra's world was beginning to fracture. Khalid's sharp footsteps echoed suddenly through the doorway, the trusted advisor's expression grave as he closed the entrance behind him. "Your Highness," Khalid said, voice low and urgent. "The whispers have turned to roars. The tribes speak openly of defiance, spurred by a shadow spreading through the desert like wildfire. We have reports of raids on border outposts, coordinated, ruthless." The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the fire behind his eyes flaring to life. "And what of the threat within? Have the traitors shown themselves?" Khalid's gaze flicked furtively to Amira, then back to the Sheikh. "The enemy wears many masks. The name linked to this unrest is closer than you might wish to face." A bitter chill engulfed the room. The layers of loyalty and betrayal twisted like serpents in the night. Sheikh al-Zahra's hands curled into fists. "If deceit hides behind familiar faces, then bring them before me. I will root out every shadow that dares challenge my reign." Amira stepped slightly forward, her voice steady but demanding attention. "You seek the truth, yet fear what it might mean. The danger I carry is not just a threat, it's a chance for change, for something beyond this cycle of power and fear." His piercing gaze locked with hers, the tempest between them growing more volatile by the second. "You ask for trust when all I feel is doubt. Why should I believe you?" Her eyes flashed with fierce conviction. "Because the same hands that aimed to bury me also hold the key to our survival. Denying this secret will doom us both." Before the Sheikh could respond, the heavy oak doors burst open to reveal a messenger, breathless and wide-eyed. "Your Highness, the border outpost nearest to the southern dunes has fallen. The rebels have struck with brutal cunning. They grow stronger by the hour." The room seemed to shrink beneath the weight of the news. Every thread of the Sheikh's world trembled. He turned sharply back to Amira, his voice a low growl, filled with desperate urgency. "Your secret, Amira, it's more than a hidden past. It is a weapon, a spark that could either reignite the lands or reduce everything to ash." Her lips parted, a flicker of fear hiding behind her courage. "And if we fail, if I cannot reach those who still listen, then the flames will burn us all." The golden light flickered as a sudden breeze slipped through the open window, carrying the soft crash of crashing waves from vast fountains outside. The palace held its breath, caught between hope and looming disaster. Sheikh al-Zahra's cold exterior cracked just enough to reveal a fractured man standing at a crossroads. He reached out, half hesitantly, and brushed a loose strand of hair from Amira's face, a gesture filled with fragile promise and aching vulnerability. "The dawn will bring a battle not only for control, but for our very souls," he murmured. "And I will stand by your side, whether as ally or adversary." Amira met his touch with steady eyes, the unspoken pact forging between them in the muted glow of the desert night. But through the dim corridors, far from the warm glow of their fragile alliance, a figure cloaked in darkness smiled with cruel satisfaction. The enemy had found their key, and the game for Emir al-Zahra's soul and kingdom was only just beginning. The early light of dawn filtered through the ornate latticework, casting fractured patterns of gold and shadow across the marble floor of Emir al-Zahra's chambers. The air was heavy, not with the scent of jasmine or oud this time, but with an unspoken tension that wrapped the room tighter than any silk drapery. The billionaire Sheikh stood by the window, his silhouette rigid, the letter still clenched in one hand. His eyes traced the endless stretch of desert beyond his palace walls, as if searching for answers amidst the endless dunes. Yet the turmoil was rooted only a few steps behind him, in the fragile figure quietly standing by the doorway. Amira's breath came steady, but her chest rose and fell with the weight of years kept secret. Her eyes, illuminated in the soft morning light, held an unyielding fierceness, a contrast to the delicate veil slipping from her shoulders. "You brought me to this place," she said, voice calm but resolute. "But I remain outside in many ways. Why?" The question hung between them like a challenge, daring him to break his walls. He turned slowly, the hardness in his gaze softening, just enough to reveal the vulnerability he guarded fiercely. "Because you are no longer invisible, Amira. The threads of your secret have woven themselves into the fabric of my reign, and I fear what they might unravel." Her gaze sharpened. "My secret is survival. It is pain, a legacy hidden from this world to protect me, and to safeguard those who fear its power." He studied her, the fine lines of exhaustion at her temples, the subtle trembling of her hands. The opulence surrounding them was a brittle fortress, and here, in this fragile moment, the walls seemed to sway. "Tell me everything," he demanded, his voice low, yet weighted with an unexpected desperation. "No more half-truths, no more veils." Amira stepped forward, the soft rustle of her silk robe brushing against the cold marble like a whispered confession. She spoke slowly, each word honed by years of silence. "I am the last of a tribe, erased from history, thought extinct by enemies who desired only to conquer. My parents hid me here, beneath these very floors, hoping I would live beyond their reach." Her eyes locked on his, the vulnerability crackling beneath the surface like a sudden thunderstorm. But the past never stays buried. It is rising now, threatening to ignite the desert in flames. The Sheikh's fists clenched, his knuckles white against the smooth paper of the letter. The empire he had built with iron will and ruthless strategy suddenly felt a fragile thread, tangled with the fate of a girl who had once been nothing more than a servant. "And the rebellion?" he asked, voice harsh as desert winds. "Is this the cause?" Amira's gaze darkened. "It is more than rebellion. It is vengeance born from betrayal. The same whispers that stir among the tribes are whispers of a truth they intend to reclaim, a truth I carry." The room fell into a brittle silence, broken only by the distant echo of hurried footsteps along the marble corridors. Khalid entered, his face a mask of controlled urgency. The lines around his eyes deepened as they settled on the two figures locked in this fragile truce. "Your Highness," Khalid said, voice low and urgent. "The border outposts have fallen. The rebellion marches with a strength born of desperation and cunning. But there is something else. A name surfaces among the insurgents, a name linked to this secret of hers." The Sheikh's dark eyes narrowed. "Speak it." Khalid hesitated, then whispered, "Alia." The single syllable shattered the fragile veneer of control. The name was poison. Amira took an involuntary step back, her pale hand trembling. The secret she had carried, the legacy she thought buried, had a name, as deadly as the desert sun. The Sheikh's voice was barely audible when he spoke. "Alia was your sister." She nodded, swallowing the pain. Her heart refused to show. She was taken by our enemies years ago, raised among the tribes that now rise against him. Her gaze bore into his, strength mingled with sorrow. "Our bloodline is both the key and the curse." Lightning flashed across the sky, beyond the lattice. The summer storm finally breaking over the parched sands, the sound rolling like distant drums of war. He moved closer, the magnetic pull between them charged with unspoken fears and fragile hopes. The man who had ruled with an iron fist now hesitated, torn between his duty and the woman standing before him, the bearer of a secret that could either fracture his empire or forge it anew. "We face a war on two fronts," he whispered, voice hoarse. "One that threatens my throne, and the other, a battle for your soul." Amira's lips parted, hesitating on words she feared and longed to speak. "I have been hiding from the past all my life, but no more. If there is to be a kingdom reborn, it must rise from the ashes of our truth." His hand reached out, brushing the soft fabric at her wrist, a touch both tentative and electric. "Then we will face it together." The distant roar of desert winds surged, carrying with it a fatal promise. The storm was no longer just outside these walls. It had taken root inside the palace, among the shadows and whispered lies. Suddenly, the heavy oak door slammed open, and a hooded figure hurried in, breathless and pale. "Your Highness," the messenger gasped, eyes wide with dread. "A coalition of tribes have pledged allegiance to Alia. She's returning to claim what was stolen, and she brings an army." The Sheikh's gaze locked with Amira's, the fragile hope between them shattered by the weight of impending war. The past had come roaring back, not as a whisper, but as a tempest bearing down on the palace walls. And as the first thunderclap shook the foundations, the billionaire Sheikh understood with stark clarity. The struggle for love, power, and survival was far from over. The true battle, one that would define their destinies, was only just beginning. The palace stood silent under the tempestuous dawn, its golden halls cloaked in a fragile stillness that belied the storm unseen, yet felt deep within the bones of Emir Alzara's domain. The air was thick, weighted with the unspoken, as if even the walls held their breath, waiting for the next move in a game that had already devoured so much. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze was fixed, piercing through the latticework toward the endless dunes beyond. His dark eyes burned not with the iron resolve of command, but with a fierce wildfire of doubt, fear, and something dangerously close to hope. The name whispered by Khalid, Alia, had shattered his certainty, unraveling the taut strings of his empire with the brutality of desert lightning. Behind him, Amira stood, serene yet unyielding, the morning light tracing the elegant lines of her face, revealing the countless battles hidden behind her veil. Her hand rested lightly on the edge of a carved table, knuckles whitening with the tension she barely allowed herself to show. The secret she bore was no longer hers alone. It had become the axis on which the balance of power teetered. She turned slowly, eyes meeting his with a fierce clarity that both comforted and unsettled him. "She is my blood," Amira said quietly, voice steady, but edged with a silent storm. "Alia was taken when we were children, torn from the only home she knew, raised amidst those who now raise their swords against your reign." A deep silence fell, swallowing the room whole. His empire, his life's masterpiece, suddenly seemed as fragile as the delicate glass jars that held the palace's rarest spices. "How much of this rebellion is fueled by her?" His voice cracked like dry earth. "How much of this war is our family's fight?" Amira's eyes darkened with unspoken pain. "More than you know. The tribes rally not only behind a cause, but a name, a symbol of the past they refuse to forget. The very legacy I tried to bury, the legacy that should have died with them, now guides the charge." The Sheikh stepped forward, his towering form casting a shadow over the opulent floor as his breath quickened. "Your secret, Amira. It is the key to everything, a weapon that can ignite the entire desert or hold it in the palm of my hand." She met his intensity without flinching. "And yet," she whispered, "that same weapon could save us, all of us, if we dare wield it together." Between them, fragile strings of trust began to weave a tense tapestry. The noises beyond their chamber grew, footsteps, hurried voices, the restless pulse of a world bending toward chaos. Khalid's arrival was sudden, his face carved from worry under a crown of silvered hair. "Your Highness," he said, voice low, "the coalition grows stronger by the hour. The tribes unite behind Alia's banner, and the border settlements fall like grains of sand swept by a relentless wind." The Sheikh's jaw clenched. "Then there is no time, no room for doubt. We must act, and act swiftly. But first," he looked again at Amira, the flicker of something vulnerable crossing his otherwise impenetrable gaze. "You must reveal everything, no omission. The survival of my kingdom and the heart of my empire depend on what you carry within." Amira's throat tightened. The walls she had built around her past threatened to crumble beneath the weight of his command and the urgency of their plight. With a breath that shuddered like the desert wind before a storm, she began. "The tribe we come from, the Al-Nasir, was annihilated in a covert massacre, our name erased by those who feared our power. My survival here was meant to be the end of that chapter." Her voice cracked just for a moment, betraying years of silent sorrow. Alia's survival was kept secret, hidden among the tribes who wished to reclaim what was stolen. She is the phoenix they will rally around, a living spark of vengeance. The Sheikh closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of her confession as if inhaling a bitter poison. His hands trembled ever so slightly before he clenched them into fists, not from weakness, but raw determination. "Then the war is inside these walls as much as it is beyond them," he muttered. "Not just a battle of tribes, but a war of hidden truths and fractured loyalties." Amira nodded, courage blossoming amid the fear. And I am caught between the blood that binds me and the empire I serve, between the past that hunts me and the future we might forge. A distant horn, blown thrice, shattered the fragile moment, a summons that echoed through the palace like a harbinger of doom. The sound vibrated through the marble corridors, stirring desperate whispers among guards and courtiers. The Sheikh's breath hitched, the air around him crackling with unspent fury and aching vulnerability. He reached out, fingertips tracing the curve of Amira's hand in a gesture at once tentative and fiercely protective. Tonight, we have no choice but to stand united, he said, his voice low but resolute. No longer ruler and servant, but allies against the gathering storm. Her gaze locked on his, a tempest swirling beneath her calm surface. I have walked in shadows, hiding the truth that now threatens to consume us. What will you do when the darkness is no longer distant, when it stands before us with the face of kin? He swallowed the answer, rising unbidden in his throat. Then I will fight. For you. For this kingdom. For the hope that truth can be our shield, even when every blade is poised to strike. Outside, the desert wind howled through the palace arches, a wild lament that carried the promise of war. But it was not the howling winds, nor the armies amassing beyond the dunes that haunted them, Sheikh most. It was the knowledge that the enemy they feared, the enemy who smiled from the shadows, was closer than ever before, moving silently through the darkest corners of the palace. A figure cloaked in black peeled back a hood to reveal a face as cold and unyielding as the desert stone. A whispered voice broke the night's silence. Soon, Emir Al-Zara, your reign and your heart will be shattered beyond repair. And with that, the unseen hand pulled the strings that would unravel everything. The desert winds clawed at the towering walls of Emir Al-Zara's palace, their icy fingers threading through the ornate latticework, like ghostly whispers seeking to unravel the fragile calm within. Inside the gilded sanctuary, the air vibrated with unspoken tension, thick as the heavy scent of jasmine that clung to the velvet drapes. The moon's pale glow struggled to pierce the shadowed corners, where doubt and desire tangled in a perilous dance. The billionaire Sheikh stood rigid by the expansive window, the letter embossed with warning still clenched in his hand. His gaze, once sharp with absolute certainty, now flickered with a storm of turmoil. The name Alia echoed relentlessly in his mind, a dagger carved from betrayal and blood. A sister, separated by fate, now the banner of rebellion. The knowledge weighed like a crushing desert stone. No fortress, no throne could shield him from that. Behind him, Amira's silhouette was framed in the faint luminescence, her presence a quiet tempest amidst the opulence. Her eyes met his with unwavering fortitude, a spark of fierce loyalty interlaced with a deep ache for the sister she had lost and the empire she sought to protect. You stand on the edge of ruin, she said softly, stepping forward, the rustle of her silk robe stirring the silence like a whispered secret. Alia's return is a reckoning. The tribes don't just follow her out of allegiance. They are bound by a vengeance older than this desert. Her voice faltered just for a heartbeat, then strengthened. If we do not face this truth, we will be buried beneath its sands. He tightened his grip on the letter, the creases biting sharply into his palm. All my life I have commanded loyalty, crushed dissent, and defied every storm, he said, his tone low, almost vulnerable. Yet this cuts through me because it is not foreign. It is born of blood. His dark eyes searched hers, seeking a lifeline amid the swirling chaos. How do I fight a war where my enemy carries my own name? Amira's jaw clenched with the weight of that torment. By remembering that even blood can be torn, reshaped, Alia is more than a rebel. She is the last echo of a lineage thought extinguished. But she is also a woman forged by pain and betrayal, perhaps not beyond redemption. Her hand impulsively brushed against the carved wood of a nearby table, grounding herself in the moment. You must decide if you wield your power as a weapon or a shield. The atmosphere thickened, as if the palace itself held its breath. Outside, distant drums thundered, the heartbeat of an approaching storm. Knights tightened their grips on scimitars. Courtiers whispered fears cloaked in silk and gold. Khalid's heavy footsteps cut through the stillness. His face was carved from granite, worry carved in the creases of his brow. He bowed, voice steady, but urgent. Your Highness, the coalition of tribes grows bolder. Smoky plumes rise from the southern dunes, entrenched camps forming. Alia's name rallies the fractured desert like wildfire. The Sheikh's gaze sharpened, veins knotting at his temples. Then it is no longer a question of if, but when. Tell me, what have you discovered in your watch? Has the traitor within been unveiled? Khalid's eyes flicked briefly toward Amira. A silent exchange, heavier than words. The shadows cling closer than ever. There are those within who hide behind false loyalty, those who would see the empire crumble from within. The name most whispered in the corridors of power is one you least suspect. The words landed like coals on dry earth. The flames of distrust flared anew, consuming any remaining vestiges of certainty. The Sheikh's chest tightened, a prison of responsibility and loneliness. His heart, though armored, throbbed as if exposed beneath the desert sun. Amira stepped forward, every movement deliberate, her voice steady yet charged. The lines between ally and enemy blur in this palace. But know this. My loyalty has never wavered. The secret I bear is not a weapon against you. It is the key to holding everything together. He turned to her, the solitude in his gaze breaking momentarily. Then reveal it fully, all of it. No more half-truths. No more veils that hide the shape of danger. She inhaled sharply, the weight of years pressing down. The Al-Nasir tribe was betrayed by blood, a massacre meant to erase us from history. I survived by a thread, hidden in the shadows of this palace, while Alia, my sister, was stolen away, raised among those who now stand in defiance. His eyes darkened with fierce resolve. And all this time I ruled oblivious to the ground shifting beneath my feet, to the battle born in your blood. A sudden pounding at the heavy oak door shattered the moment. The guards flung it open, and a breathless messenger stumbled in, eyes wild with dread. Your Highness, The outposts at the border have fallen. The tribes press forward, united like never before. Alia leads them, and she brings more than warriors. She carries a secret weapon. The Sheikh's gaze locked with Amira's, intensity flaring like desert lightning. What secret? Her lips trembled, shadows flickering behind her eyes. An alliance forged in darkness, a power reclaimed from our ancestors. Not just strength of arms, but something far deadlier. If unleashed, it could consume us all. Silence enveloped the chamber. The grand tapestries fluttered slightly in the sudden stillness as, if the palace itself shuddered in fear, the Sheikh's voice lowered to a grim whisper. Then the war is no longer only on the battlefield, but in hearts, in minds, in the very soul of this kingdom. Amira's hand reached for his, a touch both seeking and grounding. We stand on the brink, but together we decide if we fall or rise anew. Outside, the desert roared its warning. The stars blinked out behind gathering clouds, and the night held its breath. In the shadowed depths of the palace, unseen eyes glimmered with cold satisfaction. A letter, long hidden, was unsealed. Names were whispered in hushed tones, names that would rend the fragile bonds of trust asunder. And as the final echo of the messenger's warning faded into the night, the billionaire Sheikh understood the cruel truth. His greatest battle had only just begun, and its victor would not merely claim a throne, but the very heart that ruled it. The first rays of dawn spilled softly over Emir al-Zahra's palace, casting the golden spires in a gentle light that seemed to promise a new beginning. The desert, vast and eternal, stretched beyond, but within the walls, a quiet battle for peace had just come to a close. The billionaire Sheikh stood beside the window, his figure still tall, yet no longer rigid with unyielding command. His eyes, once masked by suspicion and guarded resolve, now softened with an unspoken grace. The letter that had once threatened to shatter his world lay forgotten on the ornate table, replaced by truths unveiled and burdens finally shared. Amira approached, her veil lifted, revealing a face illuminated, not only by the first light of day, but by a serene strength born from the storm they had weathered together. The secrets of her past, the lineage erased, the sister torn by fate, the rebellion that almost consumed them, no longer hung like shadows, but stood as pillars of their united future. Their hands found each other with a tender certainty, fingers entwining like the roots of a tree, reclaiming the earth after a long winter. Neither was a ruler nor a servant anymore, but partners, forged in fire, bound by the trials that had almost undone them, and now by a shared hope for what was to come. "The storm has passed," the Sheikh murmured, voice low but steady. "Not without scars, but with a promise, a chance to rebuild what was broken." Amira's gaze held his, fierce and unwavering. "We dared to face the darkness instead of hiding from it. That is our strength." In the halls beyond their chamber, the palace hummed with quiet renewal. Courtiers who once whispered in suspicion now spoke in tones softened by respect and tentative hope. The tribes, led by Alia, had called a truce, reaching out across the desert with offerings of peace instead of arrows. The fires of vengeance were quenched, replaced by dialogues sown with cautious goodwill. The Sheikh walked through the vast corridors, the weight of a crown, feeling less like a burden and more like a mantle embraced. His steps led him to the garden, where the blooms of orange and jasmine bowed gently in the morning breeze. A garden, once wilting under the strain of secrets, now vibrant with life. Amira joined him among the fragrant petals and whispered leaves, the sunlight painting halos around their forms. There, amidst the delicate beauty of flourishing blossoms, they found a sanctuary beyond power struggles and hidden enemies, an oasis carved by love and resilience. Their whispers were soft, promises forged with the depth of shared scars and the sweetness of forgiveness. The Sheikh's voice, once harsh and commanding, now carried a softness that touched the fragile spaces of her heart. You taught me that strength is not always in control, but sometimes in surrender. He confessed, his fingers tracing the outline of her face with reverent awe. Her smile, radiant and unguarded, answered before words found their way. And you showed me that even the coldest hearts can learn to burn with hope. Together, they stood beneath the sapphire sky, where the desert winds danced freely, no longer ominous, but full of whispered dreams. The future stretched before them, uncertain, yet shimmering with possibility. The palace, majestic and still, seemed to breathe a new life, a kingdom reborn, not from conquest, but from understanding, not from division, but from unity. Meanwhile, Alia's name, once a harbinger of rebellion, now echoed through the desert as a symbol of reconciliation. The sisterhood severed by pain, embraced again through promises of peace and the shared desire for a land where past wounds could heal beneath the endless sun. Within the palace walls, the once tangible tension had melted into quiet laughter and soft embraces. Servants and nobles alike sensed the beginning of an era where secrets no longer threatened, but gently wove the tapestry of a stronger realm. As the sun climbed higher, dazzling the golden domes with its warmth, the Sheikh and Amira found themselves in the heart of the palace, the place where power met vulnerability, and where love had triumphed over the shadow of betrayal. He pulled her close, whispering with a voice thick with emotion, "This kingdom, this life, it is ours now, not built on fear, but on truth." Her eyes glistened, reflecting the light of a future they shaped side by side. And whatever tomorrow brings, we face it together, unbreakable. The breeze carried their soft laughter outward, mingling with the songs of sparrows and the faint hum of awakening life. The empire's heart pulsed steady and strong once more, a testament to the resilience of two souls who dared to confront the darkness and emerge into light. And among the golden pillars and endless skies, the billionaire Sheikh and his beloved stood, united, redeemed, and ready to write the next chapters of their story with courage, love, and unwavering hope.